Okay, welcome to another class. Today we're doing a vocabulary class on the environment. I'll go through a lot of phrases, the kind of phrases that you read whenever you're dealing with the climate change cult. You'll read a lot of this vocabulary, and I hope to show why I call it a cult. I think that these are some of the most common aspects of any cult, and I think we find this in the environmental cult, especially climate change. So the climate change cult, firstly, they talk about changing weather patterns. Of course, the weather's quite famous for changing regularly and for going through cyclical periods as well, you know, with colder periods, warmer periods. It's very well known. And with these changing weather patterns, you also get rising sea levels, rising temperatures sometimes. This weekend is a good example, in fact, or on Monday, I think we're supposed to have extremely high temperatures. We're supposed to have intense searing heat, which just means very high temperatures, yeah? And if sea levels rise, then this can cause widespread flooding. And of course, any heavy rain can cause widespread flooding. I live in an area which is really quite low. And so there's an island near me that was very famous for serious floods in the 1950s, 1960s, which killed a few hundred, I think, or certainly more than 50. It killed quite a few people. And so we do have problems with widespread flooding in England. Floods actually happen really quite often. And I suppose they happen in all countries, you know, from time to time. Irreversible climate change. Now, this is supposed to, I mean, you can see it in the name, irreversible. And by the way, I'll quickly mention that. When do you use this IR prefix? Well, it's usually before words that begin with R. So irreversible, irregular. There are many more. Irresponsible as well. Irresponsible, not unresponsible, but irresponsible, irreversible, irregular. So there's a little prefix bit of information. Just like the im usually goes before an M or a P. Immature, impersonal, impractical, immaterial. There are many examples, but that's something that it's not always the case, sadly. You know, there are exceptions to that. That's not a solid rule, but it's right most of, 90% of the time maybe. So this is supposed to say that climate change is irreversible. You can't stop it. You can't reverse it. It is inevitable. It's another good adjective for when something is certain to happen. It is inevitable. It is inevitable that climate change will happen and will get worse. So there we talk about irreversible climate change. Now, they will often discuss and certainly advertise, you might even say, promote the dire consequences of, for example, burning fossil fuels. Yeah, the dire consequences. Now, please remember this adjective, dire. It's very negative. It means the very, very serious circumstances, or the very, very serious consequences, or the very, very serious situation. And so it collocates very well with those three, especially consequences. You often hear about the dire consequences of overpopulation, maybe. Where's overpopulation? You might talk about the dire consequences of overpopulation. I think the people that usually do this have 7 or 8 or 9 children, yeah? Because there's a lot of rank hypocrisy in any cult, yeah? There's a lot of rank hypocrisy, okay, in the newspapers, in Parliament. There's a lot of rank hypocrisy everywhere. But I think that in climate change, there's an awful lot of rank hypocrisy, and certainly with overpopulation. The people preaching overpopulation as, you know, the dire consequences of the present, they actually have many children, and so they don't lead by example. They're hypocrites. Okay, so you have dire circumstances, dire consequences, a dire situation. You can be in dire need of something. Yeah, if you're going through the desert, I don't know, you haven't got any water, you're in dire need of water. Yeah, but it just means you really need a drink, you're thirsty. And if you are in dire straits, think of the band, yeah, the music group, Dire Straits. If you're in dire straits, you're in a terrible situation. Yeah, you're in a really difficult predicament. Remember that a predicament is a difficult situation. Predicament doesn't sound quite as extreme to me as a dire